Greetings from the Philippines to the world. It's August 25, 5 p.m. here in Manila, and we are on Facebook Live on Eagle News, and also watch this video on eaglenewslive.com. I am Cesar Vallejos. We are open for business. Join me discover the latest news and information in business around the world. Stay ahead of the curve from vision to action. The peso is 53.43 against the dollar, and at the closing of trade yesterday, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index closed at 7,766.47, down 37.56 points or 0.48%. In a research reported by a flexible workspace provider in 2016, 35% of Filipino employees noted that the trip to the office is a waste of time due to traffic congestion. There are about 10 million Filipinos who commute in Metro Manila, wasting 3 hours a day in traffic. Also, in Metro Manila alone, the worsening traffic costs 3.5 billion pesos in lost opportunities per day, according to the Japan International Cooperation Agency. While some quarters say that it is the years of underinvestment, the lack of political will, and the increasing number of vehicles on the road that cause the traffic problem and the discomfort of Filipino workers. Some believe that there is also caused by our obsolete urban models. How is urban planning, or the lack of it, is affecting the Filipino workforce and business? Joining us later is considered a pillar of the industry, whose architectural firm is the first Filipino company included in the top 500 architectural firms in the world of the London-based World Architecture magazine in 1999, and the only Southeast Asian architectural firm in the top 100 largest practices and the top 8 leisure projects in the world in 2012. Before we talk with the president of the Palafox Architecture Group, architect Felino June Palafox Jr., let's take a look at these business stories we've seen published this week. Selection of third telco to push through by the fourth quarter. Poorest consumers lost as much as 14 pesos per day due to inflation. Boracay companies start hiring employees for October 26 reopening, and Makati mass transport system to break ground by year-end. Here are the details. A new contender to the PLDT and Globe Telecom duopoly will be named within the fourth quarter of 2018, the Department of Information and Communications Technology said on Thursday. The ICT Acting Secretary Eliseo Rio Jr. said that he was not inclined to grant more time to interested bidders, as President Rodrigo Duterte had originally insisted on having a new major telco player by March 2018. Rio said that local companies that have expressed interest include Converge ICT Solutions, Easy Call Communications Philippines, Now Corporation, Philippine Telegraph, and telephone company PT&T, Tier 1, and Trans-Pacific Broadband Group. He said foreign telcos that expressed their interest were China Telecom, South Korean companies KT Corporation and LG U+, Norway's Telenor, and United States-based AT&T. Rio added that Japanese and Vietnamese telcos also expressed interest. The third player will also be barred from merging with a dominant player or any company with a market share of at least 40%. The poorest consumers lost as much as 14 pesos per day in the January to June period due to the high cost of various commodities, particularly food items, according to Ibon Foundation. Ibon Foundation Executive Director Jose Enrique Africa said 50% of the poorest households already lost 1,159 to 2,596 in the first 6 months of the year due to inflation. Business Mirror estimates showed that this translates to a daily income loss of 6.44 to 14.42 pesos per household. However, the estimates only accounted for the net effect of inflation on household incomes and did not isolate the impact of the weak peso, high oil prices, and the train law. The poorest 30% of households are very sensitive to food price hikes, since food accounts for about 70% of their consumer basket. The Senate Committee on Economic Affairs prodded the Duterte administration to promptly form a multi-agency task force to deal with and quickly mitigate the impact of the skyrocketing inflation. Hotels and establishments in the resort island of Boracay have started accepting applications for staff in time for the reopening of the island on October 26, the Provincial Employment Service Office said. Vivian Ruiz Solano, head of the Peso Aklan, said a job fair for hundreds of available posts for Boracay businesses was held on August 7. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources announced the opening of Boracay on October 26, 6 months after this resort island was closed to rehabilitate its environment. Other companies have also announced the availability of hundreds of positions for qualified employees from all over the country. Rowen Aguirre, Executive Assistant of the Local Government of Malay, said there are still 500 companies in this resort island who are yet to comply with the necessary requirements of the reopening. Among the requirements are business permits, fire and sanitation clearances, among others. The $3.7 billion unsolicited proposal to build a Makati mass transport system is seen to break ground by the end of the year, the Makati city government said. In a statement on Thursday, the local government said the Swiss challenge for the subway proposal of IRC Properties is set to end by September 24, hence the positive outlook that construction may begin by year's end. Makati Mayor Abby Binay yesterday said the proposed intra-city subway in the country's premier financial district could break ground by year-end once the competitive Swiss challenge process for the $3.7 billion railway project is completed next month. It's going to be an interesting conversation as architect June Palafox joins us when this Open for Business returns. Keep watching. Our guest today is the principal architect and urban planner, architect Palafox. Thank you for coming to the show, sir.
Thank you for inviting me here. Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Sir, our topic is very timely because of the traffic congestion and all the recent happenings, especially at the airport in the last few days. So, what exactly, sir, is the impact of urban planning to the Filipino workforce? But before maybe you answer that, can you give us an insight of your definition of urban planning?
Yeah, urban planning is preparing the land use and the circulation routes on the land, and the cities and the towns and so on, where it's a platform where architecture and engineering comes in. It's land use like housing, transportation, industries, mixed-use development, place of jobs, place of housing, place of schools, and so on. Putting together what comprises a city or a town or a province.
So it's really, architect, it's really a consolidation of various factors. It's not just, one specific aspect of a certain place, but it is a consolidation of a lot of things.
It's putting in the space, everything like involves architecture, engineering, management, economics, political aspects in a space. In a space like land. Yeah. And it's comprehensive in terms of area, the whole area, comprehensive in terms of time, like immediate action, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and visionary planning. And it's really planned that way. And unfortunately, our country, we don't have good urban planning, or the good plans are not being implemented. And impact on employees and workers is a very, very relevant topic today. I think because of how much time is wasted every day just going to work.
So, sir, when you say good plans are not implemented, when we look at how the government and private sector deal with each other, when we talk of urban planning, whose call is it?
Yeah, it's both.
Okay.
Governments regulate and stimulate development, and the private sector invests.
Okay.
But I think 80% of all of most countries and cities, 80% is private sector investment.
Okay.
20% just for government. But basically, the government is the infrastructure, and that's needed for a city. But also, private sector can do the infrastructure, and we have used the wrong urban models. And 1976, that's 42 years ago, I was team leader for the World Bank funded Metro Manila Transport Land Use Development Planning Project. And it was in that project that it was one of the best metro plans in the world. I think that's one reason why I was invited to help plan Dubai in 1976. Because of that metro plan, I was senior planner and team leader. And we said that time, with a do-nothing scenario on land use and transportation, we will have catastrophic traffic, flooding, lack of decent housing, not prepared to disasters. And it's happening today. The catastrophic traffic, flooding, not prepared to disasters. We told that in 1976 with a do-nothing scenario.
Okay, let me go back to that time, sir. You said that you participated in a World Bank project.
World Bank funded.
World Bank funded
Metro Plan Manila.
Metro Plan Manila, and that was done how many years ago?
1976.
1976. So as early as 1976, there was really a Metro Manila plan.
Very comprehensive. It involved 40 towns and cities, not just
Wow.
the 17 towns and cities. And I think we were about 80 in that project, and about 20 international experts were with us, and I was team leader.
What happened to
Like
that project?
some components of that plan, we were the first ones to propose the light rail transit, and by 1992 we should have completed 8 lines. We only have 3 lines. We cannot even maintain the MRT. That time we're talking already about congestion charging. We cannot even implement the driver plus one driver cars.
Correct.
At that time we told already, but when you enter a congested area, you must pay to enter. And places like even Dubai, which we helped plan, they're already implementing the congestion charging. And so many things, like we're still using the outdated practices of intramuros during the Spanish times. Intramuros, inside the walls for the rich and powerful and connected. Extramuros, outside the walls for the Indios, the peasants, the sanglais, and the poor. If you look at Metro Manila, we're still practicing the intramuros and extramuros. That's one reason also for the employees suffering, because let's say the central business district of Makati, the daytime population is 11 times the nighttime population.
Correct.
Because the employees of Makati are not included in the housing stock of Makati. So I think most of them waste about 5 hours a day in traffic. So 5 hours a day times maybe 220 working days, that's what? More than 1,200 hours a year is wasted. So if you have 40 years in your economic life, you would have wasted more than 40,000 man-hours in your life. Ideally, there should be balance between place of work and place of residence. Unfortunately, for our central business districts are Makati, Fort Bonifacio, Ortigas Center, surrounded by low-density gated communities. Communities for the rich, but no communities even for the middle-income executives and employees. So much because of there were plans, or there are poor models, like Singapore, Hong Kong, our Asian neighboring cities, their model was European cities. Our model for Philippine planning is Los Angeles. Los Angeles,
Which is, yeah.
Los Angeles was post-war. Los Angeles was designed for the automobile, not for the pedestrian,
Okay.
not for the public transit. Have we been inspired by other American cities? Maybe it should have been Boston, Chicago, New York, Portland, not
Mhm.
Los Angeles. Los Angeles planning after the war is the worst kind of planning. It's urban sprawl,
Mhm.
sprawling city, and there's a big imbalance between the place of work and place of residence,
Mhm.
because it was designed for the automobile. And at that point in time, energy, cost of fuel was very cheap, and cars were more affordable.
Mhm.
But Los Angeles have reformed, but we are not yet reforming. Like Los Angeles, the gated communities of Los Angeles, after the OPEC oil crisis of 1973, they opened up their gates.
Mhm.
Here, the gates of the gated communities are not
Are
yet
still
open.
closed.
Still closed. That was, so we are, what, 1973, 45 years behind the
Wow.
reforms of progressive cities in the world.
Architect, you mentioned about various cities like Chicago, Boston, also other countries
Also in
like
the US.
Singapore and
Singapore, Hong Kong,
and
of course London, Paris,
Dubai.
New York, and
that's my question, sir. Why are some cities getting it right in terms of urban
La-
planning? What's wrong
la-
with
af-
the Philippines?
after my stint as team leader for development planning of Metro Plan Manila, 1976,
Mhm.
1977, I was invited as urban planner and architect in Dubai.
Mhm.
And since then, we've helped 38 other countries. They listen
Wow.
more to us than our own country. But when we Filipinos, we know the problems, we know the solutions. But some decision makers, they still wait for foreign experts to tell us what's wrong. We already know. I think that's a reverse. It's a reverse discrimination. If you
Okay.
are Filipino, you are not treated as an expert.
So
I think
is
that's
it some,
reverse.
so in short, is it something about our culture,
Yeah, the
or is it something
that's
about?
colonial baggage, I think. That's one. And the other one, some decision makers, they don't want to be told what they do not know, they do not know, they do not know. Elsewhere in the world, where we are being hired to tell the decision makers what they do not know, they do not know, they do not know. If our knowledge is like a pie,
Okay.
a small slice of that pie is what we know, we know.
Mhm.
Another small slice is what we know, we do not know. The rest of the pie is what we do not know, we do not know, we do not know. And that's the problem here. If you tell people what they do not know, they do not know, they do not know, they feel insulted.
Mhm.
Elsewhere in the world, experts, so-called experts, are hard,
Yes.
paid very
Consultants,
well
correct.
to tell them what they do not know, they do not know, they do not know.
And they embrace it.
They embrace
and they do
Yeah.
something about. So, sir,
They
when
say
you
so many Filipinos are, especially some decision makers, they seem to know more than what experts can share.
Mhm. And sir, I understand that in Dubai there's a lot of Filipino architects there also.
Yeah.
So, and also when we visited Dubai, you can really see and feel how progressive their urban design is. Can you talk more about
Yeah.
your work with
In
the
fact,
Dubai
I
city?
was the first Southeast Asian and Filipino architect invited to work in Dubai.
Mhm.
I was invited in 1976. I
Okay.
reported to work 1977.
How long did you work there?
4 years for the Dubai government.
Okay.
And that time I worked on influencing the architecture,
Okay.
like architectural character of buildings, and then coordination of utilities,
Mhm.
the different utilities services like power, water, and so on.
Mhm.
Also transportation, traffic management,
Mhm.
land use, and plans. I was one of architects, planners, engineers from so many countries, maybe more than 20 countries that time.
Mhm.
And I was name hired. I did not apply for the job. I was invited.
Wow.
I did not even know where Dubai was. Yeah.
It was because of your work with the Metro plan.
Primarily.
So the Metro plan is really very ideal because
It-
the fact that you were
Yeah.
invited to go there, they wanted to somehow replicate that
Yeah.
success.
So
that
several
plan.
from several countries we brought into Dubai what we know, what we learned from previous experience.
Mhm.
And Metro Plan was comparable to the Metro Plan for New York, Metro Plan for Toronto, Metro Plan
Really?
for London,
Mhm.
Singapore,
Mhm.
Kuala Lumpur, and so on. That's the comparison. And Hong Kong.
Wow. So when we going back to the work that you did with Dubai Architect, when doing an urban planning, what exactly is like say of course your client would be the government and the private
Yeah.
investment. So are you part of that team that will somehow check the character of that specific
Yeah.
country or that locality? How do you
One
do
thing
it?
with Dubai, they have great rulers.
Okay.
So His Highness Sheikh Rashid bin Said Al Maktoum, he was the ruler at that time, the father of the ruler now, Sheikh Mohammed.
Okay.
He wanted Dubai to lead, not to be led.
Wow.
And then he wanted us to design Dubai as if there's no oil,
Okay.
because in 35 years oil would be gone. He wanted us to create a garden city out of the desert.
Mhm.
He wanted us to make Dubai the pace-setter leading city in the Middle East and North Africa in the 70s.
Mhm.
And one thing that I like very much, we were given the opportunity, me and the whole family, to go around the world for every month of service, to learn from the best cities in the world and bring it
Mhm.
back to the conversation in Dubai.
Mhm.
And they have strong political will,
Mm-mm.
visionary leadership,
Mm-mm.
good appreciation of planning like urban planning, good appreciation of design like architecture and engineering,
Mm-mm.
and good governance.
So in short, sir, are we saying that all those factors that you mentioned, from political will, from good governance, is not done in the Philippines, at least from the time that you did in 1976 the Metro
Metro
Wide
Plan.
Metro Plan?
Yeah, I think we have strong leadership,
Yes.
and I hope urban planning will be better appreciated also.
But sir, what's your comment on some quarters saying that in terms of urban planning, Metro Manila already is a dead city? What's your reaction?
It's dying.
Okay, it's dying.
Because one, they did not follow our plan, Metro Plan Manila. And then number two is obsolete practices,
Okay.
like the intramuros, extramuros. You have urban sprawl in the middle of the city,
Mm-mm.
suburban, urban sprawl. Planning is balanced. There's so much imbalance.
Mhm.
If you compare a city to a human body,
Okay.
the lungs of the cities are the parks and open spaces.
Okay.
The parks and open spaces now are being converted and built on and sold, just like selling your land.
Okay.
And then the hearts of the city are the major activity centers, the central business districts, the schools district, big shopping malls, and so on. Those are the heart of the city. And the arteries of the city are the roads and waterways. So Metro Manila needs a heart transplant, a heart bypass, and a lung transplant.
Oh, but given that, sir, is there a chance? Is there still a window for improvement
Yeah,
on that?
there are.
Can like say, as you mentioned, it's patterned from the intramuros where it's really a closed
Yeah.
community. Can the private
And the
sector
car-oriented.
and the car-oriented, can they, or is there a chance for them to open their gates? And will the government and the private sector or these communities living in Makati, can they be involved in the
Yeah.
urban planning?
They should be. Like, there are private sector like Rockwell Drive. We
Correct.
master plan
Yes.
Rockwell and designed the first 5 towers. Rockwell Drive is open to the public.
Yeah.
It closes only from midnight till 5 in the morning.
Mhm.
And Orbit Street in Bel Air, it's open.
Yes.
I think from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m.
Mhm.
So other villages can follow the same as good patriotic citizens.
Mhm.
Because EDSA is functioning like 9 roads. It's a major
Mhm.
artery, minor artery, major collector road, minor collector road, it's residential access road, shopping center access road, military camps road, schools road, and so on. So there should be 8 parallel roads to EDSA. And where are these 8 parallel roads? Inside military camps, inside the gated communities, and inside cemeteries. So we should open them up at least during peak hours. It will alleviate the traffic situation. Like Makati CBD, Central Business District. The density increased by 4 times since 1990. But the capacity of the roads and access on public transport did not increase 4 times.
Yes.
I think also Ortiga Center and Fort Bonifacio, and I think even Cubao, Araneta Center, they increased more than 4 times, even at the corridor. And cars increasing so much, but we don't have the increase in roads and public transit and so on. And then there are 20 kinds of urban transport. Number 1 is walking.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 2 is bicycle. Number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on is public transit. The automobile should be their last choice. The automobile. In Japan, they have one of the highest car ownership in the world, but 82% use public transit.
Yes.
They only bring out their cars 1 o'clock in the morning when there are no more trains running, or during the weekends.
Because they have a very, very efficient public transport
Even
system.
in Germany, they make the best cars in the world, but they don't allow their cars in the city centers.
But what about, sir, your view of some developers now who try to somehow apply urban planning in the sense that, as you mentioned earlier, the lungs, the heart, and the other system are designed in a way that it completes the whole picture and providing the Filipino workforce and the residents a good, better quality of living. But before you answer, sir, we'll pause for a break. Open for Business returns in a while. Keep watching. We're back on Open for Business. With me is Architect Jun Palafox of the Palafox Group architecture firm. And we were telling earlier, Architect, I was asking earlier, what's your comment on the developers now who are trying to implement urban planning concepts?
Yeah, I give 5 guidelines. It must be people first,
Okay.
then planet Earth, the environment. Then we can talk about prosperity or profits. Then, as much practicable, culture, history, and heritage, and interfaith spirituality. What's happening if there's no government guiding? Private sector is profit-oriented.
Okay.
Some are just profit, 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 never mind traffic.
Yes.
That's what's happening because government is not regulating it. Or maybe people in government are not aware of such thing. That's why at Palafox, these are our guidelines. So if there's a project that destroys the environment, we don't accept the project.
Okay.
For instance, if we create too much traffic, we tell our clients also, we must address also the traffic generation and so on. And of course, if you don't regulate the private sector, they will go for profits. But if there's other countries in the world, other more progressive cities, they have good urban planners in government.
Okay.
And with the latest trends, global trends. The planning we're practicing in the Philippines is obsolete. It's still car-oriented. Even look at our infrastructure. It's for the cars, not for the pedestrians, not for public transit. It's for the cars. And only 2% of Filipinos are car owners. 100% of us Filipinos are pedestrians.
Yes.
Once you leave your car, you're a pedestrian. But look at our infrastructure. It's prioritized the automobile.
Yes.
Elsewhere in the world, it's the pedestrian, the bicycle, and public transit. But here, it's still the post-war planning when cost of fuel was very cheap, and car was the preferred mode of transport. We cannot afford that anymore.
Now, sir, that you mentioned about this infrastructure, Do you think with the Build, Build, Build campaign program of the Duterte administration, what is the role of urban planning there? Have you, somehow informed the government or the private sector that in this Build, Build, Build campaign, urban planning methodologies and concepts should be incorporated?
Yeah, fortunately, we've done the urban planning for the whole province of Pampanga.
Okay.
Clark. We're now doing Metro Davao Urban Master Plan, 8
Okay.
LGUs, and we're putting there the best practices in the world. So it's public transport first, and then create new cities. We need 100 new cities in our country by 2050, because our population today is 106 million. By 2050, we will be 166 million. So with 50 million more Filipinos, 70% of them will want to live in cities. We need at least 100 new cities. Otherwise, even our provincial cities will become as bad, if not worse, than Metro Manila. So in the Metro Davao Urban Master Plan, we are encouraging new towns, new cities outside the existing cities. Outside. Like Metro Davao, 8 LGUs, we can fit in 6 Singapores or 4 Hong Kongs.
Wow.
And the province of Pampanga, we can fit 3 Singapores or 2 Hong Kongs.
Wow.
So if they follow our master plan, we can preserve the open spaces, park, and so on. And yet, we can make it more livable.
Yeah, sorry, sir. Okay. So you're saying that you are now designing the urban plan for 8 LGUs
In Metro Davao.
In Metro Davao.
Pampanga, we just completed it.
Okay. Can you, sir, describe how the ideal urban plan for one LGU that should be possibly replicated by the other LGU?
Let's say you create new cities outside the built-up area.
Okay.
Let's say the big shopping malls, maybe don't let them already in the congested cities.
Okay.
Encourage them to build outside and create new developments outside. And then we propose circumferential road transport corridors to go around the built-up areas,
Okay.
and radial roads to interconnect also. And these 100 new cities we need by 2050, they should start to be planned and developed. And it also would help Metro Manila. Because Metro Manila, why do people come to Metro Manila? Because the opportunities of jobs and education and so on. We should make the provincial towns and cities more attractive than Metro Manila. And you would even be helping Metro Manila by creating better cities outside of Metro Manila. The whole country, we should be doing that.
Sir, some of the questions would be continuity. Like, for example, you created a very, very ideal plan. But if there is a new administration that comes in, it is possible that they will not really respect or appreciate that kind of urban plan. So what is your suggestion, or what's the solution to ensure that whatever urban plan that has been approved and developed will come into fruition?
The private sector must be involved. Like there are chambers of commerce, there are Rotary Club, there are Lions Club, and maybe create a development foundation for the city. So whoever will be mayor or governor in the future, this private sector participated or led foundation will make sure they follow the plan. Like Daniel Burnham planned Manila in 1905, Baguio and Chicago in 1909. Both Manila and Baguio did not follow the city beautiful and city efficient principles of urban planning by Daniel Burnham. But Chicago, they followed it. And he said the inspiration for Manila should be like Paris and Venice. Paris because of wide boulevards, River Seine and Pasig River. Venice because of the esteros of Manila and the canals of Venice. Manila Bay would be like Bay of Naples, the waterfront. And all of these principles, 1909, 4 years after he planned Manila, he planned Chicago. Chicago followed the city beautiful, city efficient principles. Although they keep updating every year because of new changes, but the basic principles of city beautiful and putting order in the city is still being followed.
What about, sir, the character of a nation or a city? Like, for example, you can say that it is patterned after Paris or Venice, but
It's
it
inspiration.
evokes-
You don't have to copy.
Yes,
Inspire.
yes,
Just the principles, not the look of it.
exactly. But which is my question? What are your strategies to ensure that the character is reflected in the look of a
Yeah.
specific city
Like
in
you-
your urban plan?
Like you can say Dubai, for instance, they
Mhm.
wanted international and Arabic and Islamic at the same time.
Yes.
So it's a blend. I think Malaysia is the same also. For government buildings, it must follow the Malay Islamic architecture,
Mhm.
at least in government buildings. And private sector, you very have to control the character, style and character. But government sector, at least the civic structures, the infrastructure. For instance, in all our plans, we always require that road transport corridors, 1/3 should be for trees and landscaping,
Okay.
1/3 for pedestrians and bicycles,
Mhm.
and 1/3 for the moving traffic lanes.
Mhm.
Because it takes at least 10 trees to recover the oxygen out of the carbon monoxide per car.
Mhm.
And it lowers by at least 5 degrees the temperature. So
Mm-hmm.
you would encourage walking.
Mhm.
And we plan healthy places for healthy people. We must walk at least 10,000 steps a day. That's 7 kilometers a day. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Boston and New York. I was walking 20,000 steps a day.
Wow.
That's 14
Oh,
kilometers.
that's double the.
Although it's very
10,000.
hot summer days also. Very hot summer. Temperatures just like here. But I was able to walk without noticing it because the pedestrian pathways, the sidewalks, the public transportation are safe and convenient. So we
Mhm.
should
And sometimes it's very artsy.
Yeah.
The landscaping is very
Yeah.
beautiful.
And they show their gardens. Here are beautiful gardens in the gated
Mhm.
communities. And they put a wall. Elsewhere in the world, when you have beautiful garden, you share it with the public.
Okay, correct. Which leads me again, sir, to the impact of the Filipino workforce. Of course, okay,
Yeah.
we have a very very good concept that since it is not practiced here in the Philippines, especially because of the traffic congestion, a lot of them are affected, and also, they cannot live near their place of work.
Yeah.
So they have to commute
Yeah.
very far, for them to
Yeah.
reach work. So what are the possible ideas that you think
Yeah.
should be done for the Filipino
Maybe we can
workforce?
borrow the anti-snub zoning, inclusionary zoning.
What is that
of
anti-snub,
bawal
sir?
snabero in Massachusetts.
Okay.
In Massachusetts, 20% of what you plant communities or anything, 20% must be affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And even the Catholic Archdiocese of Boston,
Mhm.
30% must be affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And 70 to 80% open market, it cross-subsidizes. The profits you make, you cross-subsidize the affordable housing. Let's say if we had to do again Fort Bonifacio,
Okay.
maybe 20 to 30% should have been devoted to the affordable,
Okay.
including the lower middle and urban poor areas. And we have so much government land. Maybe in the future, government lands being converted into urban development, they should allocate 20 to 30% for the urban poor and the lower middle income. So that
Which
you
is
remember-
not the design today.
Not today. We don't have such a...
Nothing
we
for the
don't-
poor.
We
So
don't
basic.
have anti-snub zoning.
Okay.
There's this what they call socialized housing, but let's say you build in Makati, you can put it in Batanes or Holo, your 20%. In New
Correct.
York, in Boston, and most European cities, it must be within. Within is when we designed Rockwell, a survey was done.
Mm-hmm.
We, Metro Manilans, we walk only 400 meters
Mm-hmm.
because there are no sidewalks.
Yes.
Or we stop anywhere tricycle, stop anywhere jeepney, stop anywhere buses, stop anywhere taxi, stop anywhere cars.
Mm-hmm.
So we walk only 400 meters and there are no safe and convenient sidewalks.
Mm-hmm. So, sir, what is your view of some developers who are trying to come up with a lot of spaces now, like say dormitories for the call centers or apartments or units for families that are easily accessible to their workspace. They come up with high-rise buildings just within the community. So is that the right thing to do?
It's a good initiative.
Okay.
It's a good initiative. Like, if we were to redevelop Makati or the Ortigas area or even Fort Bonifacio or even Cubao, they should put more affordable housing. There's too much concentration of jobs, but no affordable housing. Like people working in Makati, living in Quezon City, I think they waste five
Yes.
hours a day.
Correct. So and on peak hours, sir, it's even more. You know, and
It's worse.
if there is like say for example there is a stalled car or an accident in one space, the whole stretch is heavily affected. So, sir, going the way I understand now with your insights is that there has to be a good coordination between government and the private sector.
And good urban planning.
And good urban planning. So, who should be the architects of an urban of the urban plan? Because I understand you said there has to be, a good coordination between private sector and government.
sector.
Who is the, let's say, the czar or the master of the urban plan? As a follow-up question, sir, does this need, you think, a special department? Like, for example, there's a problem of water now. They say, oh, we should have a department of water management. So, with urban planning, do you think that there has to be a special sector or organization that oversees this?
There are, like Singapore, they have the Housing and Urban Development Authority
Okay.
in Singapore. And we used to have the Department or Ministry of Human Settlements. It was abolished.
Yes.
And there was the infrastructure planning of the planning.
And that was the time of President Marcos,
Yeah.
correct?
And there was also the infrastructure planning on the Department of Public Works, Transportation and Communications, and Planning and Project Development Office. And that's where we were part of Metroplan, interagency,
Okay.
working on infrastructure to coordinate. Because what's happening without those, there's a tendency for different departments of government to act like vertical elevators without the floors. With a more integration.
Oh, who absorb the one that for the metro plan? Who absorbed those functions now?
Yeah, MMDA, the 17 LGUs.
Oh, I
17
see.
LGUs, but we plan for 40 LGUs.
I see.
So it's another thing is we should now update our models. We're still using the laws of the Indies of the Spanish times. Intramuros were the rich, extramuros were the poor. That's more than 500 years. We're still using that. And then the car-oriented planning of Los Angeles after the war. Los Angeles started reforming it after the OPEC oil crisis of 1973.
So they were
They-
reactive,
they-
or no, responsive,
proactive.
proactive. Yes.
I go back to school every time there's a global crisis. Like after 9/11, I've gone back to Harvard Graduate School of Design
Okay.
to unlearn the mistakes and learn new best practices. Just 3 weeks ago, I went back to school again in Harvard. Not just for a class reunion, but got enrolled again to take some special courses.
What can you at least cite? What's
Yeah.
your new learning?
Like
from
I
this one?
studied it after 9/11, security by design,
Okay.
master planning and sustainability, architecture and sustainability, the best practices in real estate development, the art of design leadership, all of those.
Wow.
Yeah. And lessons learned from mistakes made and lessons learned from best practices all over the world.
So, do you think, sir, that with our system now and with the political will, that's being showcased by the Duterte administration, is there hope for urban planning to succeed here
There's
in the
some hope
Philippines?
because like we won the competition and bids for Metro Davao, Pampanga, Clark, Puerto Princesa, Zamboanga, Siargao, and many others. Zero corruption.
Wow.
Unlike in the past.
we're in, if there's zero corruption in this administration.
No, at least the projects that we were involved in.
Okay.
We won without anybody asking for a commission.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, that's something positive about it. Maybe because people are now scared of the president's campaign against corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a positive. Because in the past, we would lose because we don't compromise.
Yes, I see. But okay, sir. So with that positive insight that it is possible with zero corruption, you think this
The projects that we were involved in.
Yes.
There's
So-
still corruption now, but at least the projects we were involved in, there was no corruption.
Okay. And then how true is the client, let's say the LGUs, following the urban master plan?
Yeah, at least for Metro Davao and Pampanga, even Ilocos, we did some Metro Ilocos tourism plan. They seem to have strong leadership
Okay.
now, and hopefully it will be continued by future leaders. That's why, more than the blueprints of the plans, we should create now a planning system,
Okay.
an urban planning system that can cross generations. Like after the big earthquake in Kathmandu, Nepal,
Mm-hmm.
we're hired by Chuchi, the Buddhist organization, and with funders from 96 Buddhists from 96 countries,
Mm-hmm.
to design a university, a hospital, and 3 schools to last 40 generations.
Wow. Well, that is
1,000 years.
that is
1,000
sustainability.
Yeah. Here in our country, when I talk 100 years, only 4 generations. People are skeptical.
Yeah.
Foreigners hire us
Correct.
to design facilities to last 40 generations, 1,000 years. And there's so much brain power in this country.
Mm-hmm.
But some of our Filipino expats, when they come home, they are not very well appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do now, instead of we should have more brain gain rather than brain gain. Filipinos abroad, they've been so well respected in their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not call them OFW. We were
Okay.
called Filipino expats.
Yes.
OFW sounds like prisoner of war. We
Yes.
don't call the Americans here American OFW, Australian OFW, Japanese OFW. We should give them respect. Filipino expats.
Correct. So, sir, with your exposure with urban planning, and as you mentioned, you just, you even traveled to Harvard recently to, get new learnings. Is there a way for the country to somehow institutionalize it? Is there, like, for example, other schools or other countries would have special schools for urban planning? Some would have programs for government officials in the private sector. Is this institutionalized?
Even the schools offering environmental planning, they should upgrade and update.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I told you, at age 68, I still go back to school in Harvard. And also, I have membership in international organizations at American Institute of Architects, American Planning Association. I'm a fellow of the Council for Tall Buildings and a country leader. I have about maybe a dozen international organizations of which I actively participate. I learn and share. That's how I get up to date, and I hope other professionals will do the same. And if you see something wrong, you must speak out, because if you don't speak out, you don't report, just like a sin of omission, not just a sin of commission. That's why there's so much corruption here. Only 1% are corrupt, but the 98.99% are cowards, so don't care anymore.
So, sir, I think we're almost nearing the time limit. If there is one urban place that you want to redevelop, what would this be, and how would you do it?
Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, Metro Davao, and the emerging metropolitan areas, we should do some urban renewal and planning for new areas. And then the next 100 new cities, we should make them walkable, bikeable, livable, safer, more convenient, integrating places to live, work, shop, and dine, learn, and worship with healthcare and wellness center, with some 24-hour cycle activity centers. They must be integrated. There must be cross-generational and mixed income, and multi-use and mixed use. And this is what we've been preaching. And we do it in all our projects, whether we're followed or not. it's like a crusade already, because architecture is art and science, so
Yes.
it's urban planning, but it's also a passion and advocacy, because we have to keep pitching the benefits of having a good urban plan and good architecture. And somebody described architecture as good citizen architecture. Because when we design buildings, we look at the surroundings. What's the positive impact of the building we design,
Yes.
and the neighborhood, the community, and the city? It's not uglifying the city.
Correct.
It beautifies the surroundings and give creating values as well.
Architect, we've been addressing both the government and I think the private sector since we started the conversation. But this time, sir, what is your message to the Filipino worker and the Filipino family who are commuters, and a lot of them are in Metro Manila and the whole country?
Yeah, Filipino workers and employees, we should try to work closer to our place, to live closer to our places of work, and maybe influence government to put more affordable housing where there are concentration of jobs. And we should all be very vigilant, keep our cities safer. And like I had proposed elevated walkways the whole length of EDSA, and pedestrian bridges and bicycle bridges across Pasig River, across San Juan River, across Marikina River, and all the waterways. Encourage people to walk, stay healthy. And for the Filipino workers and employees, we should try to influence decision makers. Let's say your salary is so much. How much of this goes to traffic? Like employees of Makati are traffic burdened and rental burdened.
Yes.
Because housing is so expensive. So they are
Correct.
rental burdened and they're traffic burdened. I think the same with the employees of Fort Bonifacio, employees of Ortigas Center. It's all the same. They cannot afford housing. They have to commute from very far places. And then in communities and cities and towns that have less jobs, I think we should put more office parks, business parks, so that integrate more the place to live and place to work. And for the Philippines, maybe even schools, instead of increasing classrooms, they should put more dormitories and put new classrooms in the provinces, so that the quality of education, whether you study in the provinces or in Metro Manila, is the same quality. Unlike now, if you study in the provinces, you're like a second class.
Yeah, substandard.
So we should distribute even education, job opportunities to the provinces. And our country is so blessed. We're number one in the world in marine biodiversity. We're now number one in the world in seafarers, sailors. We're now number one in the world in call centers. I'd like to believe we're number one in nurses and doctors and musicians. We're number two in the world in geothermal energy.
Wow.
We're number two in the world in BPOs. We have the third longest coastline in the world. In Dubai, they didn't have enough coastline, so they did the Palm Islands just to add 2,000 kilometers more of
So
waterfront.
it's man-made, yes.
Some
Ours
coun-
is natural.
Yeah, some countries, they go to war because they don't have waterfront, like Iraq invading Kuwait.
Uh-huh.
We're number 4 in the world in gold research. We're number 4 in the world in shipbuilding. We're number 5 in all other mineral resources. We're number 12 in human resources. So without corruption, if we have just corruption, criminality, climate change, we should be in the top 20 economies of the world.
Wow. And how far do you think are we from being number 20?
I think as long as we have a strong political will, visionary leadership, good appreciation of urban planning, good appreciation of good design like architecture, engineering, and good governance. And our leaders must not be intellectually challenged, and they must not be integrity challenged.
Okay. Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank Architect Palafox. And as you have heard, the Filipino workforce deserve a better quality of urban life with better urban planning and regional development. We thank Architect Palafox for his straightforward analysis and insights and ideas. Thank you very much, Architect. We hope to see you again here on the show.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and thank you
Okay.
for the listeners and viewers for the opportunity to share.
Open for Business Will Return. Stay tuned for our term of the week and our inspiring words. Open for Business is here. We'll be back. In our term of the week, you take a refresher of business to make you updated, more informed, and ready to make smarter business decisions. Our term of the week is LEAD. That's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It is a certification program and the nationally accepted benchmark for the design, construction, and operation of high-performance green buildings. We end our webisode with the quote of the day. Today's words are from Rebecca Solnit, an American author who often writes on the environment, politics, place, and art. She said, "In great cities, spaces as well as places are designed and built. Walking, witnessing, being in public are as much part of the design and purpose as being inside to eat, sleep, make shoes, or love, or music. The word citizen has to do with cities, and the ideal city is organized around citizenship, around participation in public life." Join us again next Saturday, 5 p.m. Philippine time, for another episode of Open for Business, where we discuss business information, deliver the latest business news to keep you informed and open for business and be ahead of the curve from vision to action. You're on Facebook Live on Eagle News and also watch us on eaglenewslive.com. This is Cesar Vallejos. Have a great day.